Good evening and welcome to the second lesson of This Can Happen, the course about Mashiach, the Jewish Messiah. Second lesson entitled, Who Needs a Redemption? We have many people joining us on Zoom tonight. We have a number of people joining us in person. So welcome, good to see you all. I hope you had a wonderful, wonderful week. Okay, so a fascinating discussion tonight, and I'm really excited. So last week, we started the discussion. We started the discussion of Mashiach, to discuss what does Judaism say about Mashiach, and how close are we to this being a reality. And, throughout the 2,000 years since the destruction of the Second Temple, the destruction of exile, there are many new words in the Jewish lexicon, in our vocabulary. We have words like state-sponsored persecution. You have inquisition. There are many words that, unfortunately, you could say is part of our lexicon today. One of those words is false Messiah. And unfortunately, throughout the ages, throughout the generations, there were people who claimed to be Messiah. And obviously, they were a failed Messiah. They weren't the true one. And I think perhaps because of that, many of the Jewish people, they felt worn out with the concept of Mashiach. And we tried to just get away. Let's not entertain these thoughts. Let's not discuss. And what happens is there's a lack of understanding, a proper understanding. What is the Jewish approach to Mashiach? And therefore, I commend you. And I think it's a great thing that we're coming together now for 6 weeks to do what? To discuss this foundational, this fundamental topic, perhaps the most important topic in Jewish thought. What is the Jewish take about Mashiach? So we spoke last week. We had somewhat of an eye-opening data that we were looking at to see the great progress that the world has taken towards a messianic world. War and peace, poverty and wealth, health and longevity, these are steadily progressing towards the messianic world described in dozens of the prophecies of the Torah. We saw this, how it's not only compared to 2,000-3,000 years ago, but even compared to 20, 30, 40 years ago, there's a major, major shift. The world is changing, and the prophecies of the messianic era are today is so much more realistic than it was hundreds of thousands of years ago. We also laid down a foundation. We laid down the foundation that the belief in Mashiach is not just another Jewish belief, but it is a foundational, it's a principle, right? We mentioned Maimonides, who writes the 13 principles of faith from all the Jewish beliefs and from all the mitzvahs. He collects 13 beliefs. And you see this in your book on page 53, figure 2.2. You see that Maimonides talks about 13 beliefs. And part of these beliefs are believing in one God, believing in how God isn't physical, has not physical properties, how God is timeless, believing in Moses' prophecy, and many others. And 2 out of the 13 beliefs, the principles in Judaism, is in the belief in Mashiach. So we see how important it is. So I want to share a short video of Holocaust survivor. Now he's Olav Hashalom. He passed away just maybe, 3 years ago. Elie Wiesel. He sings a rendition. He sings the song Ani Ma'amin, which is the 13th principle of Maimonides, the believing in Mashiach. I believe in Mashiach, and even if he will tarry, if it takes long, I still believe in him, in his coming. So I want to play a short video of him singing the song. Give me a moment. Give me a second. Let me share it on the Zoom so everyone can watch it together. Here we go.
מאמין באמונה שלמה בביאת המשיח ואף על פי שיתממך אחכה לו בכל יום שיבוא.
So there you have it. Obviously very emotional. Someone who went through the camps, went through Auschwitz and Buchenwald, wherever he was, and the torture, the pain that he endured and he witnessed, and he still has that foundational belief that yes, Mashiach could still come and will still come.
What was the book that he wrote?
He wrote many books. He wrote 57 books. And he's famous for his book Night. That's what probably he's most famous for, but he wrote many, many books. Many, many books. Yeah. He recently passed away within maybe the last 2 or 3 years. Okay, so let's take this to a new, deeper understanding to the idea of Mashiach. And what we're going to discuss tonight is a new dimension, a deeper layer to the concept and the belief in a Mashiach. Based on last week's discussion, and I know Renee and others pointed this out, we focused primarily on materialistic prophecies. Important. Things like health, and right? No more illness, no more famine, longevity, world peace, no more war, no more famine, right? We spoke about a very important materialistic physical progress, peace, right? And that's what Mashiach is. Mashiach is a place, a time where everything's going to be good. We're not going to have any problems, no issues, no hunger, no anger, no relationship problem, no fighting, no jealousy, no envy, right? It's going to be a time of peace. It's going to be a beautiful, beautiful time. At the same time, if we view Mashiach, and this is the sum total of Mashiach, in other words, we could make this mistake and view the idea of Mashiach as an answer, a solution to our problems. We have problems. No one wants to see a child starve. No one wants to see a young child, a 7-year-old, die from cancer. We don't want to see a pandemic killing millions of people. We don't want to see war. We don't want to see hatred. We don't want to see all the problems that we're going through. So you know what? What's the answer? Mashiach. The end of our pain and suffering. It's the greatest solution, the ultimate solution to our problems. So that is, I would say, a shallow view on Mashiach. It's important. It's there. We have the prophecies. We will not have these problems when Mashiach comes, but is that the sum total of Mashiach? Or is there a deeper dimension to Mashiach? And what we're going to introduce today and discuss tonight, is this deeper dimension. And what we're going to say is, in short, that the Mashiach is not only a solution to our problems, it is actually the sum total purpose. It's the ultimate goal of what? Of the entire creation. Why did God create the universe? The answer is for the era of Mashiach. So the era of Mashiach is not only about reaching a place where there is no negativity, because we don't want negativity, but it's actually the sum total of why we are here. Why were we born? Why does planet Earth exist? Why does the entire universe exist? It exists in order to reach the time of Mashiach. When we're living the time of Mashiach, that is the ultimate purpose. That's what it's all about. That is what it's all about. And that's where we find a whole different dimension when we talk about Mashiach. We talk about the idea of the temple being restored. We're talking about the kingdom of David being restored. We're talking about the idea that we are able to fulfill all the mitzvahs, all the commandments, even some which we are not able to do today. And most importantly, we talk about a state of great godly revelation, divine revelation. This is what some of the prophecies tell us is going to happen when Mashiach comes. It's not only about physical abundance, but it's also about godly revelation. In the back of your, towards the end of lesson 1, you'll see on page 91, I believe it is, 91 and 92, you have a collection of, I'm not even sure how many, maybe 20 or so different prophecies throughout the prophets, from Ezekiel and from Isaiah and from Malachi and from Amos and Zechariah, right? So many different prophets, different prophecies in regards to Mashiach. I just want to read 2 or 3 towards the end, probably on page 92. I want to read, for example, Isaiah 40:20. I think it's the third to last prophecy. Isaiah tells us, the glory of God will be revealed, and all flesh will see that the mouth of God has spoken. Oh, it's a whole different type of prophecy. We're not talking about illness. We're not talking about longevity. We're not talking about pain and suffering. We're not talking about persecution, right? We're talking about one thing, that God will be revealed. And we'll be able to experience this. The next one, from Zechariah. And God will be king over the entire world. On that day, God will be one and his name will be one. Oh, something that we're all going to accept, the sovereignty of God. It's a whole different type of Mashiach. It's a different language. It's not the same language that we spoke last week. It's a whole different language, a whole different dimension. And just to point out that these prophecies of Isaiah and others, when were they told over? When were they prophesied? When did Isaiah live? Isaiah lived historically before the destruction of the first temple. We're talking about 2,500 years ago. We're talking about when the Jewish people were living in good times. They were in Israel. They had a temple. They had a king. They had a body of judges. They had Sanhedrin. They had what they need. King Solomon's time was a peaceful time. Even in those times when all was peaceful, they weren't in the Jewish exile. The prophets were still talking about a time that will come in the future, a future time, a messianic era. It wasn't only a solution to our problems. We didn't have those problems at the time. We still spoke about a future time where godliness will be revealed. So we're going to try to develop this concept, this idea, that Mashiach is really the ultimate goal of creation. And I want to read a text. We're kind of going to go out of order a little bit today. Text 4a on page 56. And for those of you who are following on Zoom, I'm going to read it slowly. You'll be able to follow along. And as I did last week, because not everyone has the textbook, I will send a link in the follow-up email. If any of you have not received a follow-up email, I send always the day after. So probably tomorrow sometime, latest by Thursday, you will get a follow-up email with a link to a PowerPoint presentation. I will send also the PDF of this class if you don't have the actual textbook, and a link to some interesting videos on the topic so you could continue studying on this topic. So I believe I think I'm sending you all an email. If you're not receiving the email for whatever reason, please be in touch with me. Okay, so text 4a is perhaps one of the most famous verses in the Torah. It's Genesis 1:1, right? We all know Genesis 1:1. What's the first verse in the Torah? Bereshit bara, in the beginning God created. But here's something interesting. Let's read this inside. Text 4a. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And the earth was chaotic and desolate, and darkness was on the face of the watery depths, and the Spirit of God hovered upon the waters. And these are the key words, the last sentence that we're going to focus on tonight. What does it mean that the Spirit of God hovered over the waters? In general, this is a kind of a cryptic, it's almost like written in code. What does this mean? Earth was chaotic, was desolate, darkness, watery depths. What is going on over here? By the way, if any lawyers tonight over here, anyone here a lawyer? The lawyers always claim that they lived, that they existed, they were pre-creation. Because it says clearly, and the earth was chaotic. Who creates chaos? Of course, it's the lawyers, right? Sorry, Angela. No, so what does this mean? What does this mean? The Spirit of God hovers over the water. So I want to read text 4b. This is the Midrash as it was explained by one of the greatest rabbis, Rabbi Rabbeinu Bechaya. So he writes as follows. The Spirit of God hovered over the waters. This is the soul of Mashiach, based on the Midrash, okay? What does it mean, the Spirit of God? It means the soul of Mashiach. Mark these words down, okay? Right at the beginning, God is creating heaven and earth. Together with that, what is there present? The soul of Mashiach. And he explains. The meaning of this Midrash is, in this passage, God is foretelling the end at the beginning. The Torah's intention is to indicate the end of time at the very beginning of time. To teach us, and this is, I underline these words, that the ultimate purpose of God's creation of the world is the days of Mashiach. Thus, the original thought is actualized in the conclusion of the work. That's an amazing concept. It's eye-opening. It sheds so much depth and light to the concept of Mashiach. Mashiach isn't something that came years, generations, thousands of years later when the Jewish people have sinned, that they were exiled from their land. Now they have to go back to the land. This is the beginning of creation. Adam and Eve weren't even created yet. They were created on day 6. This is day 1 or even before day 1, right? The first verse, right? We're talking about before God created light, before anything. There were no humans, there was no evil inclination, there was no sin, there was nothing. Right at the beginning, God creates the world. And what does God tell us? He hints to us and says, listen, I'm creating a world. Let me tell you what it's all about. I'm creating this world for a certain purpose. The purpose is the Spirit of Mashiach, the soul of Mashiach. The purpose is that eventually this world, this physical world, will reach a place, will reach a time, will reach an era of Mashiach, whatever that means. And that's the sum total. That's the end game. That's the purpose. It's not only a solution for our problems. It's a lot more than that. It's an end goal for itself. We want to reach Mashiach, even if it's good. Many of us are saying we're having a good time, we have a good life. We have a job, we're making a nice livelihood, we have nachas, we have from our children, we have health in the family. We love the culture, we love our neighbors, we love our family, and love our friends. Who needs Mashiach? Like the famous story goes, where the husband comes home and says, "Oh, I heard this thing that Mashiach is coming. We're gonna have to pack up our bags. We have to go to Israel." And the wife says, "Don't worry. God saved us from all our enemies. God will save us from Mashiach as well." Right? So it's not a joke. Mashiach is a real thing. It's not about solving our problems. This is the purpose of it all. This is really the purpose of it all. And therefore, that is why we find somewhat of an obsession in Judaism with Mashiach. Right? It's everywhere. You can't get away from it. So in our prayer books, we pray in Jewish tradition, we pray 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, and evening. And we have the most important prayer is the Amidah Prayer, right? The silent prayer, the intimate prayer, right? There's 19 blessings. 19 blessings, right? And from these 19 blessings, many of these blessings are asking for health, asking for livelihood, they're asking for some of our needs. It's 19 blessings that we say 3 times a day. I want you to turn to text 2 on page 47. 7 of the 19 blessings. Imagine that. 7 of the 19 blessings, more than a third, deal with, we're asking God for Mashiach, for the salvation. And you see that all in your text. We're not going to read all of them. You have, for example, the 10th blessing, sound the great shofar for our freedom, raise a banner to gather our exiles and bring us together to the 4 corners of the world, of the earth, into our land. We have the 14th blessing, return in mercy to Jerusalem, your city, and dwell therein as you have promised, speedily establish therein the throne of David, your servant, and rebuild it, etc. We have so many blessings talking about asking God for Mashiach. When we eat, we have grace after meal. The blessings, if you ever paid attention, what are we saying? What are we blessing God for? In the blessings, we're mentioning asking God to return us to Israel, build Jerusalem, right? We're asking for Mashiach. In fact, we know the custom, the mitzvah to wash the Netilat Yadayim, to wash our hands before we eat bread. The reason given for that is because in the temple, this is what they had to do, and we are awaiting the rebuilding of the 3rd temple, so we have to wash our hands. So many customs in Jewish tradition is related to the belief that Mashiach is coming. We have different fast days, 3 different fast days talking about the fasting, the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple. We have Passover, right? We finish the Seder, L'Shana Haba'ah B'Yerushalayim, next year in Jerusalem. We break a glass under the chuppah. Why? To remind ourselves of the destruction of the temple, and soon we will return to Jerusalem. Some of the blessings that we say under the chuppah at a Jewish wedding, we're asking God to return us to the joy that we will have in the time of Mashiach. And on and on and on. When it comes to Jewish burial, there are certain customs that we do in the belief of the resurrection of the dead and the coming of Mashiach. When we come to our mourners, a Shiva home, we mention Zion and Jerusalem. It's everywhere. You can't get away from it. Why? Not only because we have so many tsaras, we have so many problems, and we need Mashiach, because this is what Judaism is all about. It's the quintessential idea of Judaism. Judaism is all about Mashiach. It's the purpose of it all. It's really the purpose of it all. As we've seen, when God created the world, right away, Mashiach. So this is a new understanding to the concept of Mashiach. But we have to develop this idea. What does this mean? Why? Why is this the purpose? How does it work? What's wrong with the way the world is today? Why did God want this to be the purpose of the world? If you have any questions or comments before we go further. Anything on the chat?
I'm a little confused.
Yes, question.
I'm a little confused because
Okay.
I remember hearing
that God created the world so that we could make a place for him to dwell in.
Oh, okay. You're about to read the next text.
Oh.
Okay, so Gail's pointing out the idea of a dwelling place for God. We'll mention that in a moment. Yes. Any other questions or comments? Don't be shy. What does it say in Ethics of the Father? Someone who's ashamed cannot study, because he's never asked any questions. You're just going to remain with the questions. Before we go further, I got to say l'chaim, l'chaim. Okay. So let's develop this idea. Develop this idea that what is Mashiach? Ultimately, the purpose of creation. And we'll start with the question. What's the question? The question is, if this is the purpose of creation, why didn't God just create the world to begin with as the era of Mashiach? He has to put us through all the problems, all the destructions, all the exiles, all the pain, all the suffering for what? To reach Mashiach. That's the purpose? Create Mashiach. Just for fun? What's the purpose? If that's really the purpose. So what we have to do is we have to take a step back. We have to understand, why did God create the world? It's an important question. It's a big question. Sometimes we don't even dare to answer the question. Who are we to even come up with answers? Why did God create the world? I don't know. But it's a question we have to ask. It's important to know a mission statement. You know, every company has or should have, if it's successful, it probably has a mission statement. And all the employees have to know, what is the mission of this company? And even though you know your specific job, I'm the secretary, I'm the janitor, I'm the salesperson, I'm the marketing director, right? You know what your specific role is within the company, but you also have to have buy-in. You also have to know, what is the general mission? Where are we headed, right? What's the purpose of it all? And then you'll be more enthusiastic to do your little job. And you'll stay focused. You're not gonna get carried away. It's important to have a mission. You know, I heard this yesterday, actually. I think it's debated amongst historians. Who is the father of modern day warfare? And different opinions. Some say it was Napoleon. Why Napoleon? Because Napoleon was the first who brought not an army to war, but a country to war. He lifted the morale of the entire France, the French people. Everyone was involved. He didn't just hire people to fight for him. Do your job, shoot these people, fight this battle. It wasn't just about doing a job. We wake up in the morning, I do my thing, and I go to sleep at night, and tomorrow I do it again. The country was involved. Each and every one of us, right? What's the purpose of our lives? We wake up in the morning, okay, I want to have a good day. I want to be productive. I want to do acts of goodness and kindness. I want to help family. I want to help friends. I want to be a good person. And good people we should be. But why? Meaning, what's the purpose? But why am I here? Why was I created? So I should do good? Well, why should I do good? What's missing if I wasn't created? What's missing if we weren't here? Right? Meaning, what's the mission? What's the purpose? If you believe in a God, it's not by chance. It's not, there's a world that just happened to be here and we just have to kind of live through life and then move on. But there must be a purpose. There must be a purpose. It's a mission statement. So it's a big question to ask, but the question we have to ask, what is the mission statement? What is the purpose of creation? Why did God create the world? And if we understand why God created the world, we can understand how Mashiach is the answer to that why. And we will understand why God did not create the world as the era of Mashiach, but he first created the world pre-Mashiach era. And through our work, through our living in the service of God, we will reach that point of Mashiach. Are we ready for the journey? Okay, so this concept is actually the bombshell. It's a revolutionary concept. It's in text 5. Text 5 is from a quote from the Tanya, which was a work written by Rabbi Shneur Zalman, the founder of the Chabad movement. It's philosophical, it's deep. There's lots of depths and layers to this text. And there are books and books of Hasidic thought written just on this text. It's a little bit Kabbalistic, it's a little abstract. I'm not trying to discourage you, but I want you to know going in that this is a deep philosophical concept, but it's revolutionary. It's a whole new way of understanding the world, the purpose, the mission, our existence. And I just want to give a little bit of a background to the idea of Chabad Hasidus, meaning the Chabad philosophy. I don't mean to get too off topic, off track. But today, when we say Chabad, right, we are a Chabad community. People associate Chabad with centers, with outreach. You go out throughout the world, and every little town, island, wherever you are, whether it is in deep Asia, East Asia, whether it is in northern Russia and Siberia, whether it is in the North Africa, throughout the North and South America, Australia, wherever you are, there's any place that there are Jews, there's a Chabad place, a Chabad house, Chabad center. They say every place, right? If there's Coca-Cola, there's Chabad. It goes together, right? So Chabad is associated a lot with outreach, with setting up centers where all Jews can feel comfortable. We study, we feel the joy of Judaism from all levels, whether we are advanced, whether we are beginners. It's the first time where we are ultra religious. Everyone feels comfortable at a Chabad center, and that is true. But that is truthfully a development of Chabad only in the last, I would say, 70 to 80 years. It's post-Holocaust, pretty much, when Chabad moved to the shores of the United States, for the most part. Chabad really began in the end of the 18th century. The Tanya was written by the founder of the Chabad movement in 1797, I think it was printed. And the Chabad is really a philosophy. And it's a nuanced philosophy, it's a new understanding to purpose, to world, to service of God, to who we are. And for many, many years, this is what Chabad was. It was a way of life, a manner of service to God based on the philosophy of Chabad. Chabad actually means intellect. It's an acronym which means intellect. It's an intellectual, philosophical understanding of what we are all about. Our relationship with God. Who are we? Who is God? Why does God need us? Why do we need God? This is all a very deep philosophical idea. So this is one of the revolutionary ideas that the Chabad philosophy really, really focuses on. This is something you're not going to get in any other place. This is the only place in the world that you're going to hear this idea of why did God create the world. So let's read text 5. As it is known, the sages have said, this is based on the sages in a midrash, that the purpose of the creation of this world is that, here we go, God desired that he should have a home in the lowly worlds. Every word here is precise. There was a desire that he wants a home where? In the lowly worlds. What does a home connote? A home means a place where we feel very comfortable. Where our essence, our true self is felt, is expressed, is revealed. We don't act the same when we are visiting our friend's house to the way we act when we are in our own home, right? In our own home, we wear whatever we want to wear. We eat whatever we want to eat. We do whatever we want to do. No one sees us. This is who I am. My true self. When I'm out in the open, I have to act to based on the way people see me, right? I have to, I'm not myself. And my home, I am fully revealed. God wanted a home, which means he wanted to be present. He wanted to feel comfortable. He wanted to be expressed. Where? In the lowly world. The second paragraph. It is also known that the days of Mashiach, and especially the time of the redemption, the resurrection of the dead, are the fulfillment and culmination of the creation of this world and the purpose for which it was originally created. Powerful. What's he saying over here? Point number one, why did God create the world? Because God wanted a home. God wanted to feel comfortable. Where? On planet Earth. That's point number one. Point number two. When will this be fulfilled? When will this come to fruition? When will this happen? This will actualize the time of Mashiach. The time of Mashiach, that is when God is going to be fully at home, fully revealed here on earth. Hence, Mashiach is the ultimate purpose of creation. Why is this such a revolutionary idea? It's a revolutionary idea for various reasons. One of them is because in other religious thought, other religions, or even in other Jewish thought, people view this world as a means to an end. Why are we here? It's a journey. Our souls eventually end up in heaven. We all want to go to heaven. Whatever the spiritual delight, the spiritual pleasure that we will have as a reward for our work, for our service, for our good deeds on planet Earth. So we live a life, 80, 90, 100, 120 years over here. For what purpose? Eventually, we live a good life over here. We'll have the reward, we'll reap our reward up in heaven. So ultimately, it's a means to an end. It's a chamber. It's leading to something more important. The most important thing is for our soul to be up in heaven. In order to reach heaven, you got to be a good kid at school. If you behave nicely, you got a reward. If you behave nicely for the time being, while we live here, then we will eventually reach our goal up in heaven. There's definitely truth to that. Judaism believes in punishment and reward. We believe in an afterlife. We believe in heaven. It's true, but that's not the purpose. What text 5 is saying is that no. What is the purpose? Ultimately, the purpose is, the end goal, the mission really is that this place, the planet Earth, our world, our reality, this should be a place of godliness. That's the purpose. Yes, every generation does their part, and they, specific people, eventually their soul goes to heaven. But if you take a step back and you say, collectively, where are we headed? Collectively, what are we doing? We're all on a mission. What's the mission? The mission is to make this place a home for God. This is the purpose. This is where it's at. And it'll be fulfilled in the coming of Mashiach. So that's text 5. That's text 5. Yes, question, comments. Okay.
So another thought is do good here to eventually end up in heaven.
Okay.
Where we will reap the reward. Judaism, the thought is this is what you're doing here is to make it a home for God, right? All the good you are doing that to make his home.
Correct.
And the other thought, in essence, by doing good, so you will eventually reap your reward, aren't you creating the home for God?
Yes, so just to clarify what Stephanie is pointing out, both are true, which means in Judaism, we do believe that when we pass away from this world, we do reap reward up in heaven. There is a heaven, there is a time that our souls have that reward for what we have done here. That is true. But that's not the ultimate
What's
purpose.
the purpose that differs?
The purpose is that the world is not it's not that the purpose is to get to heaven. In order to get to heaven, you have to go through planet Earth. It's the opposite. The purpose is planet Earth. For example, you have a child, goes to school. So the mother says, in Yiddish, they say, Shefele, right? They say, little boy, if you behave nicely in school, you get good grades, we'll give you a lollipop when you come home. Right? Now, is the ultimate purpose for a child to have a lollipop? Not the purpose. That's supposed to encourage. It's supposed to be an incentive. An incentive for you to do well in school will give you a reward. That's not the purpose of it. Right? So God gives us an incentive. You know what? If you do what's right, you'll reap the reward up in heaven. But why do I want you to? Why am I giving you a reward in heaven? Because this is what's most important. Because I need you down here to change this world. That's what I need. Yes, another question.
How does this relate to the paradise? Before we have a lonely world. Originally, we were part of the higher world.
So what does it mean higher worlds and lower worlds? Anything on planet Earth is not a higher world. And we'll discuss that in a moment. What does it mean higher and lower? Renee is pointing out, what does it mean? Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden was a taste. It was somewhat of a messianic era, meaning they only had a goodness. They had no negativity. They had one problem. They had a tree. That one tree messed it all up. Messianic era will be like the Garden of Eden minus the tree. There'll be no place for negativity, no place for sinning, no place for any evil. It was only holiness. Our work would be to only be better and better, to grow in holiness, to grow in goodness, but it's not going to be a challenge of negativity when Mashiach comes. I see there's a question here on the chat about what does darkness mean. We're not going to go into every part of this verse. There's lots of explanation. We're just trying to focus on the idea of Mashiach being there right at the beginning of creation. Okay. Any other questions before we continue? Okay. So let's try to take this a little bit deeper to develop this idea that God wanted a home where in the lowly worlds. Because the question that we may have, again, we're getting a little bit philosophical, but it's important to appreciate the idea of Mashiach and how this is the purpose of it all. What does it mean, lowly worlds? If God wanted a place, a home, a place to be revealed, what's wrong with the higher worlds? Why did he need a lower world? What do I mean by higher and lower worlds? So in Kabbalah, we talk about different worlds that God creates. And when we say worlds, we don't just mean like an actual world as we know it, but it means different realities. It's an abstract reality, a spiritual reality. You see on page 65, what the Kabbalah talks about, the four worlds that we have. We're not going to get into it, but the idea is that there are these spiritual realities. We refer to them as worlds that God creates. And these are what we call the higher worlds. Our world, as we know it, planet Earth, or our universe, is the lower worlds. Why is one considered higher and one considered lower? We don't mean high up, right? You ask a child, where is God? Oh, God is in the heaven. God isn't in the heaven. God is omnipresent. God is everywhere. God is here and there and everywhere, right? So it's not that the higher worlds are higher up and the lower worlds are lower down. It's spiritual. It's beyond space, right? We're not talking about higher and lower. It's like saying, could you feel an idea? You can't touch an idea because it doesn't fall in the parameters of space, of touching, right? The five senses, it's different, right? So higher and lower is not about space, obviously. And it's not even how close it is to God, because God is everywhere. There is no place where God isn't. God is everywhere. omnipresent. So what does higher and lower mean? Higher and lower means in the realm of concealment and revelation. The more God is revealed, the higher it is in this context. The higher it is because God is felt, it's more revealed. The more God is concealed, the lower it is. Not that God isn't present, but God is hiding. God is behind the curtain. It's concealed. Give you an example. We have two rooms. Room A and room B. Room A has 20 of the world's renowned professors, the top professors, the mathematics, the top professors. They know everything. Room B has young school children, 5-year-olds. Albert Einstein walks into the school, okay? Comes, big hair, comes into school. And he walks into room A. And he starts talking about their theory of revolution, of relativity. Sorry. And he explains it, gives a 10-minute, 20-minute lecture on his theory of relativity. Okay, and they all get it. They comprehend it. They get it. He walks now into room B, and he gives the same lecture to the 5-year-olds. Do they get it? No, it's way over their head. No one understands it, right? Is the truth of relativity more or less in room A or room B? It's there. It's a fact of life, right? According to this theory, it's true wherever you are. Where is it more felt? Where is it more revealed? In the room that has the professors, because they grasp it, they understand it, they feel it. It's not more or less in any room, but it's more revealed and concealed. It's more revealed in room A and it's more concealed in room B. So this is what we mean when we refer to God is in the higher worlds and the lower worlds. Higher worlds means it's a world where godliness is felt. It's spiritual. There's a revelation of God. It's like a fish in water, right? It feels its vitality comes from the water. It feels its source of it feels the divine energy. The divine energy is very much revealed. The lower worlds is where the divine energy is concealed. And in the Kabbalah, we refer to this the chain, the process of how we go from world to world to world is Seder Hishtalshlus, which is the chain process, like the chain that has lots of links. Each link is linked to the other, and through that we have a long chain. We can go from high up to lower down. So too, God has a high world where he's fully revealed. Then he conceals himself just a little bit, and then he has another world, a little bit of a lower world, but it's still very much revealed. He conceals himself a little bit more, and it's even a lower world. He conceals himself a little bit more, it's even a lower world. Until he's so much concealed, he creates our world. It's almost like you want to charge your phone. I need some energy. I need some electricity. Where am I going to go? I love, when I was growing up in Toronto, I used to love going to Niagara Falls, right? A 2-hour drive, spend the day in Niagara Falls. I need some energy. I'm going to go to Niagara Falls, to the grid right under the falls, and try to charge my phone. What's going to happen? It's going to crash. It's going to explode. Too much energy. You need a grid. You need to transform it. You know, transform it. And eventually, it gets to the outlet of my house. I could plug my phone, right? In order for God to create planet Earth, this our universe, our planet, we had to conceal his light again and again and again and again until he's so concealed that he's able to create this world. Why? What's unique about this world? We are in a state where we feel our own independence. Only in this world that we feel our own independence is God's, or in this world that God is so concealed, could we feel our own independence. In the higher world, the world of the angels know their source. It's like a fish in water, right? They have no free choice. They can never make a mistake. They are perfect beings because they are a complete expression of godliness. God wanted a world, a lower world, a world where godliness isn't felt. It's so low, God gives room for denial in God. Right? You can deny God. There are many atheists, right? Meaning God is so concealed that many people don't even know he exists. That's how low it is. And this is why we refer to this world as the lowest world. It's the lower world. It's so low, the concealment of God is so great that we don't see God. We don't feel God. So what did God want? What's the purpose? God did not want the higher world. He didn't want the worlds of his revelation. He didn't need that. Why does God need to be revealed? He doesn't need that. He's happy without being revealed. What does he want? He wanted to create a place, a universe, a reality where God is concealed. So that's step one in creation. To create a low world, to create a world that God is not felt naturally. You got to open the books to find him. You got to study to find him. You don't see him out there in the streets. You don't see him on Bourbon Street, right? You don't see him out there. You got to find him. You got to look for him. He's concealed, right? There's a lot of negativity, and God gives room for it. There's a lot of imperfection, and God gives room for it because he's concealed. There's no such thing as an imperfect angel, because in the world of the angels, in the spiritual, in the higher world, God is revealed. So if God is perfect, the world is perfect. That reality is perfect. It's a perfect reality. It's a robot with no bugs. So it works good. It's a computer that makes no mistakes. In our world, the lower worlds, it's a place that godliness is concealed, so there's room for error. There's room for mistake. So that's step number one. God had to create many of the higher worlds to get eventually so concealed that he's able to create the lower world. Okay, you with me so far? Make sense? Okay. Now, what does it say in text 5? What did God want with this lower world? God wanted a home in this lower world. It's like an oxymoron. A home means godliness is revealed. A lower world means godliness is concealed. That's what he wanted. He wanted to conceal himself, to create a world where his existence is not felt. And then we should reveal his existence in that world. That's the purpose of it all. That's what he wanted. That's Mashiach. The culmination of this is Mashiach. What's Mashiach? We read the prophecies. Mashiach is a time and a place where godliness will be revealed. The home will be built. Finally, God comes home. Oh, I feel at home in this world. I can finally reveal myself. Why does he want this? Why does he want this? They say the analogy. There was once a king that had everything he wants. He had all the wealth in the world, and he had all the newest technology, and he had everything that he wants. He wasn't missing anything. Someone, a dear friend of his, wanted to give him a gift. What could we give the king? He has everything. Whatever they came up with, I have it already. I don't need it. Until they say, you know what? We have the newest invention at the time. The newest invention was a talking bird, a parrot that talks. Oh, this was a new concept. A parrot is able to talk. And they bring the parrot to the king. He has a whole conversation with the parrot. The king is delighted, very happy. Someone asked the king, I don't understand. You have many, many birds. You own many birds. And you hear people talking all the time. What's so unique about this talking bird? And that's what he answered. He says, I have birds that don't talk. And I have humans who talk. But a bird that should talk, that's something special. That's different. I don't have that. I could talk, you could talk, but a bird can't talk. And they use this analogy to explain why did God want that where should his home would be not, he didn't choose a home in the higher worlds. He chose a home in the lower worlds. Why? Because what does a perfect person, what's missing in a perfect person? What does a perfect person lack? You know what a perfect person lacks? And I don't want to say screw my names to me, but we all know that guy or that woman who has everything, knows it all, doesn't need anything, right? What are these people missing? What are they lacking? Relationship. It's very, very difficult to have a relationship with a person who has no needs. Because a relationship is about give and take. I need you, you need me, and that's a relationship. And naturally, we do need others. We need emotional support. We need other people in our lives, right? It's important. But someone who denies that support, they have a very hard time with relationships. So think about God for a moment. God is perfect, the perfect God. What is one thing that God does not have, so to say, if you could say this about God? One thing that the perfect God does not have is imperfection. Imperfection. So what does God want? God desires us, human beings, who are imperfect. Does God desire angels? Is that the ultimate goal he wants? No, angels is just an expression of God. Boring. What's the excitement? Oh, it's a bird that talks. It's a human being who's imperfect. And they are able to overcome their imperfection. They're able to overcome their challenges, their struggles, and they're able to make that right decision. Oh, that's valuable. That's invaluable. There's nothing greater than that. For someone who has it natural and easy, what's the big deal? For someone who has a challenge and able to overcome the challenge and make the right decision, that has lots of value. That is what God desires. So God desires a home in the lower worlds because that's what God's lacking. God wants a place where God is concealed, and that gives place for imperfection. And the creatures in this world that are imperfect, when they are making these decisions to overcome their challenges, now God likes it. Now we have a relationship with God. And in the words of Kabbalah, now we are revealing godliness in this world. We are removing that curtain. We're removing the concealment. And we are revealing godliness. I want to direct you to text 11. One of the prophecies in Isaiah says exactly that. What's going to happen at the Messianic era? Page 71. No longer shall your master be cloaked. Your eyes will see your master. Your master here referring to God. Meaning now there's a cloak. There's a garment. There's a veil. There's a curtain blocking, concealing God. God isn't revealed. When Mashiach comes, what happens? It's not going to be blocking him anymore. Your master won't be cloaked. We're going to reveal. We're going to reveal godliness. That's the ultimate purpose. And it's a paradox. On the one hand, it's not going to turn into a higher world. It's going to remain a lower world. And in this lower world, we will be able to experience godliness as they do up in heaven. That is what Mashiach is all about. So it's not just about, hey, we're going to see godliness. We're not going to turn into an angel. We're going to remain independent human beings, which is a byproduct of God's concealment. And at the same time, we're going to be able to experience godliness as they do it in the higher worlds. That is the purpose of creation. That is why God created the world. I'm sure some of you have come across the concept of tikkun olam. What does tikkun olam mean in Judaism? Tikkun olam means many things in different contexts. But what the Hasidic thought, tikkun olam means to correct, to fix the world. Text 10, the second half of text 10. Rashi explains a certain midrash. This is the meaning of what it says, all his work which God created to make, right? The verse of Genesis says, God created to make. The Torah doesn't say created and made. God created the world. He made the world. No, created in order to make, but rather created to make. This is to teach us that everything requires fixing. This is the source of the concept of tikkun olam. Everything requires fixing. What are we fixing? What? It's a broken chair. What are we fixing over here? What we're fixing is the concealment. God is concealed. And through our service to God, when we do a mitzvah, and we will discuss this at length in next week, how when we do an act of goodness and kindness, when we serve God, when we do a study Torah, when we do a mitzvah, we are fixing the world. In other words, we are revealing the godliness in this world that was concealed until this point. And through our collective efforts, throughout the generations, eventually we will reach a time when godliness will be fully revealed. God will be at home. And that is what Mashiach is all about. So to answer the question, why didn't God create this initially? You can't create it initially. If he created it initially, then it will be just another higher world. It will be just another higher reality. The point is, first you need to have a world of concealment, where godliness is not felt, which means we feel our own existence. We don't feel how we are a direct expression of God. Godliness is not felt, which automatically leaves a place for negativity and all the problems of the world. And then through our work, we're able to reveal godliness in this world. Now, we are hoping and praying every day that this doesn't take thousands and thousands of years. That is why Judaism is so obsessed. That is why Judaism is so obsessed with Mashiach. Because again, Mashiach isn't only about fixing our problems. The obsession is because this is what the purpose of it all is. So every day, when we pray, we're asking God for Mashiach. What we're saying is, please, God, let us reach the goal. Let us be in that state where godliness could be revealed, which is the ultimate purpose why we're here. Right? We mentioned we wake up in the morning and we say, how's my day going to look today? What's my day going to be like today? So we want to have a productive day. But our day is not an isolated day. It's part of the macro, it's part of the big purpose of creation. And ultimately, what is it for? To reveal godliness, and which culminates in the coming of Mashiach. So every day we should be hoping and praying, we want Mashiach to come. We want this to be the day where ultimately all our work throughout the generations, it should all come to fruition. And the ultimate purpose of creation should happen today. To give this analogy of a midget on the shoulders of a giant. A giant, you have someone who is 6'10", whatever, I don't know how the tallest person is, 7 feet. And they want to reach something where they want to see over a wall. But they're only able to see, let's say they're 7 feet tall and the wall is 7 feet tall. So they can't see over the wall. So they take a midget, a young child, and they put the child on their shoulders. And the child is now able to see over the wall. Does that mean the child is so tall, the child can see over the wall? No. What it means is that the child, building on the success of the giant, is able to achieve even more than the giant. They say that there's a famous wealthy Jew living in 200 years ago, Rothschild, right? Baron Rothschild. very, very big, wealthy businessman, philanthropic Jew. So there was once a school teacher, a Jewish school teacher, taught a few kids, didn't make a very large salary. And this teacher would say, if I was Baron Rothschild, I will be wealthier than Rothschild. Why? Because I would have all of Rothschild's money, plus I will do teaching on the side. So the point is, trying to make over here is that our time, that we said that we are already, that the footsteps of Mashiach, we're already at the end. We see the world is progressing and progressing. It can happen. It's not about, hey, who are we? We had greater people living 100 years ago, greater minds and more righteous people living 500 years ago. How can we be the one to finally bring this all to a closing, to an end? But we have to see ourselves like we're a midget on a giant's shoulder. Yes, we are already on their shoulders, building on their success, building on their righteousness, all that they have produced, all that they have accomplished. On that, we all we have to do is just to kind of take it over, bring it over the top, and hopefully through our collective efforts, we will be there, and we will merit the revelation and the coming of Mashiach. So, just to sum up what we spoke about tonight, the idea of Mashiach is a new dimension. It's not just an answer to our problems. It's not just about a time of peace and tranquility, but it's really the culmination of the purpose of creation. As we saw, God created the world right at the beginning. There was the soul of Mashiach hovering. It was right there. This was the purpose for it all. This happens when Mashiach comes. What is it? God wanted a home. He wanted a place where he could be revealed, not in higher realities, but in our reality, in the lower worlds, as Kabbalah says. He wanted to be revealed over here. First, he had to conceal himself to give place for a lower world, that we should have a world as we know it, which a byproduct of that is all the negativity of the world. Through our collective efforts, we elevate the world, we reveal the godliness in the world, we fix the world, we correct the world, tikkun olam. Through that, we are able to reveal the godliness within this lower world, and that is the idea of Mashiach. So it's a whole new understanding, a whole new dimension to the idea of what is Mashiach all about. It's not just a spiritual dimension, it's the purpose of all. And that is why we are so obsessed with Mashiach, and that is why we hope and pray every day that Mashiach come today. So this is the conclusion of tonight's discussion. Next week, we will continue, same time, same place, and we will continue this discussion about how do we reach that goal? What could we do? What is our participation? What is our contribution to this goal of reaching Mashiach? That will be next week. If you have any questions or comments, please, I'm here as long as you keep me. I'd love to continue the conversation. Good night.